The maintenance shuttle workers' hope weaved through the asteroid field like a leaf caught in a hurricane. Marcus's hands moved across the controls with an expertise that impressed even Zara, who had spent her entire life navigating through space debris during mining operations. There, Marcus pointed to a massive asteroid ahead of them, its surface pocked with caves and crevices. My ship's emergency beacon is somewhere in that field. Behind them, the pirate vessel grew larger on their sensors. The sleek warship was gaining fast, its superior engines and maneuverability allowing it to close the distance despite the dangerous asteroid field. "They're charging weapons," Zara reported, her four eyes focused on the sensor displays. "Plasma cannons, military grade. One hit will vaporize us. Then we better make sure they don't get that hit." Marcus suddenly dove the shuttle toward the surface of the large asteroid, skimming so close that rocks scraped against their hull. "There, do you see it?" Zara followed his gaze and spotted a small metallic object embedded in the asteroid's surface. It was cylindrical, about the size of her torso, and was flashing with a weak emergency beacon. "That's your ship's beacon? Not just a beacon." Marcus brought the shuttle around in a tight loop that made Zara's stomach lurch. "It's an emergency pod containing our ship's most valuable cargo." The pirate ship rounded the asteroid behind them, its weapons systems locking onto their small shuttle. Red warning lights flashed across their control panel as targeting lasers painted their hull. "They have us," Zara said, her voice tight with fear. "There's nowhere left to run." Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he activated the shuttle's communication system and began broadcasting on an emergency frequency. Zara couldn't understand the language he was speaking, but she recognized the tone. He was giving coordinates, distances, and what sounded like technical specifications. "What are you doing?" "Calling for backup." Marcus finished his transmission and looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Zara, I need you to put on that emergency suit and get ready to use the escape pod." "What?" "No, we stay together. Listen to me carefully." Marcus began entering commands into the shuttle's navigation system. "In about 3 minutes, a human patrol ship is going to arrive at these coordinates. When they get here, you need to give them this." He pulled a small device from his pocket, no bigger than Zara's thumb. It looked like a standard data storage unit, but something about the way Marcus handled it suggested it was far more important than it appeared. "What is it?" "The location of a habitable world." Marcus's voice was steady, but Zara could see sweat beading on his forehead. "My ship was part of a deep space exploration mission. We found something extraordinary, Zara, a planet that could support millions of refugees from the war zones." The pirate ship fired a warning shot that exploded against the asteroid's surface, sending chunks of rock spinning through space around them. "The coordinates are encrypted," Marcus continued, "still working on the shuttle systems. Only someone with Kethvar neural patterns can decode them. That's why the pirates attacked your ship. They knew about the data, but they needed one of your people to access it." Zara stared at the small device. "How did you know I could decode it?" "I didn't until now." Marcus smiled grimly. "Sometimes the universe has a way of putting the right people in the right place at the right time." Another shot from the pirate ship, this one closer. Their hull temperature began rising as the plasma energy washed over them. "Next shot will be direct," Zara warned. "Marcus, whatever you're planning, do it now." "I am." Marcus activated the escape pod's launch sequence. "The emergency beacon I've been following isn't just a beacon. It's a prototype quantum bomb that my ship was transporting. When I trigger it, it will create a temporary rift in space-time that will destroy everything within a 10-kilometer radius." Zara's scales went white with shock. "Including us." "Including the pirates." Marcus stood up and moved toward the escape pod. "But not including you if you get far enough away in time?" "No." Zara grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not just for you." Marcus gently removed her hand from his arm. "Those coordinates contain the location of a world that could save millions of lives. Refugee populations from 17 different species could find new homes there. That's worth one human life." "Not to me, it isn't." The pirate ship fired again, and this time their shields absorbed most of the impact. Warning alarms screamed throughout the small shuttle as systems began failing. "Zara, please." Marcus's voice was urgent now. "My species has something called the greater good principle. Sometimes one person has to make a sacrifice so that many others can live. This is one of those times. Your species is insane. Maybe, but we're also stubborn." Marcus sealed her into the escape pod despite her protests. When you reach the human patrol ship, tell them that Lieutenant Marcus Chen completed his mission. Tell them the Kethvar mining vessel was destroyed by pirates, but that one survivor escaped with the data. Marcus, don't do this. Tell them that humans and Kethvar died together defending something important. Marcus's hand hovered over the pod's launch control. And tell them that sometimes the best way to save a life is to be willing to lose your own. The pirate ship was almost on top of them now, its weapons charging for a killing shot. Promise me something, Marcus said suddenly. What? Promise me you'll use those coordinates to help people. Don't let this be for nothing. Zara met his eyes through the pod's transparent aluminum window. In them she saw determination, fear, hope, and something else. Something that reminded her of the ancient Kethvar warriors who had defended their homeworld against impossible odds. I promise. Marcus smiled and hit the launch button. The escape pod shot away from the shuttle just as the pirate ship fired its killing shot. But Marcus was already activating the quantum device, overriding its safety protocols with the codes he'd memorized during his training. The last thing Zara saw before her pod's emergency systems activated was Marcus, standing at the shuttle's controls, his face illuminated by the growing light of the quantum reaction. He didn't look afraid. He looked like someone who had found exactly where he was supposed to be. The explosion that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The quantum rift tore through space-time itself, consuming the pirate ship, the asteroid field, and the small maintenance shuttle in a burst of energy that could be seen from 3 star systems away. When it was over, only Zara's escape pod remained, tumbling through empty space with its precious cargo. The coordinates to a new world, and the memory of a human who had given everything to protect them. The journey through the dying ship was like navigating through the belly of a mechanical beast that was slowly bleeding to death. Marcus led the way, his human eyes somehow able to pick out safe paths through the twisted metal and sparking electrical conduits that Zara's superior vision had missed. How can you see in this darkness? She asked as they carefully stepped over a fallen support beam. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their exceptional eyesight, able to see across multiple light spectrums that most species couldn't even detect. Humans evolved on a world with limited light sources, Marcus explained, pausing to check his scanner for life signs. We learned to make the most of what little we could see. Sometimes that means noticing details that others miss. They moved in silence for several minutes, the only sounds being their breathing, the groaning of the ship's superstructure, and the distant hiss of atmosphere leaking into space. Zara found herself studying her unexpected companion. Humans were still new to the galactic community, having only made contact 5 years ago. Most species considered them dangerous wildcards, too unpredictable to trust with important responsibilities. 28 minutes to complete atmospheric loss, the computer announced. Marcus suddenly held up his hand, and they both froze. Through the walls, they could hear voices speaking in the harsh, clicking language of Vrex pirates. The sounds were getting closer. They're doing a final sweep, Marcus whispered, looking for anything valuable before they leave the ship to explode. Zara's scales rippled with fear. They'll find us. Not if we find them first. Marcus checked his weapon and looked around the corridor they were in. There's a maintenance shaft here that should let us bypass their patrol route. You want to hide from them? No. Marcus's expression hardened. I want to make sure they can't follow us to the shuttle. Zara stared at him. You're talking about fighting trained pirates. There could be 4 or 5 of them, and they have military weapons. And they think everyone on this ship is dead. Marcus began working on the maintenance shaft access panel. Sometimes the best weapon is surprise. Against her better judgment, Zara found herself helping him remove the panel. The shaft beyond was narrow and dark, clearly designed for her people's smaller frames rather than the broader human build. I'll go first, she said. I can move more quietly than you. They crawled through the maintenance system, following the sounds of the pirate patrol. Through ventilation grates, they could see 3 Virex in full combat armor, methodically checking each room for anything valuable. Their weapons were indeed military-grade, plasma rifles that could cut through bulkheads like paper. The plan is simple, Marcus whispered as they positioned themselves above the pirates. I dropped down behind them. You come from the front. We hit them fast and hard before they can coordinate a response. That's insane. They're trained killers. So am I. Marcus's voice carried a coldness that made Zara's scales ripple. I was a Marine before I became a freight pilot. And these pirates just made a big mistake. What mistake? They killed innocent people. Marcus checked his weapon one more time. My species doesn't forgive that easily. Before Zara could argue further, Marcus was moving. He dropped through the ventilation grate with surprising silence for someone his size, landing behind the rear pirate and striking before the Virex even knew he was there. His knife found the gap between helmet and armor with surgical precision. The other two pirates spun around, raising their weapons, but Zara was already moving from the opposite direction. Her cutting tool, designed to slice through asteroid rock, made short work of the second pirate's weapon hand. His scream of pain and surprise echoed through the corridor. The third pirate fired his plasma rifle, but Marcus had already moved, using the second pirate's body as a shield while he closed the distance. The human moved with a speed and precision that Zara had never seen before. Every motion calculated and deadly. In less than 30 seconds, all three pirates were down. How did you... Zara began, then stopped as she saw Marcus slump against the wall, his face pale. Adrenaline, he said, breathing heavily. It won't last long. We need to keep moving. They took the pirates' weapons and equipment, including environmental suits that would be essential for crossing the depressurized sections of the ship. Marcus seemed to know exactly what to take and what to leave behind, his military training evident in every decision. 18 minutes to complete atmospheric loss. Bay 12 was a maze of damaged corridors and collapsed bulkheads. Twice they had to backtrack when their path was completely blocked by debris. The environmental suits were bulky and made movement difficult, but they were the only things keeping them alive as they crossed sections where the hull had been breached. Finally, they reached the shuttle bay. The maintenance shuttle worker's Hope sat in its berth looking battered but intact. Its hull was scarred by flying debris, but the important systems appeared undamaged. I can't believe it's still here, Zara breathed. Marcus was already running a diagnostic check on the shuttle's systems. The pirates probably didn't think it was worth stealing. It's not fast, not armed, and not valuable as cargo, but it's spaceworthy. Barely. Marcus frowned at the readouts. Life support for maybe 6 hours, enough fuel for one short-range jump, and the communications array is completely fried. That's not enough to reach any inhabited systems. No, but it might be enough to reach my ship. Marcus activated the shuttle's external sensors. Before she was destroyed, my captain managed to launch our emergency beacon. If we can find it. The shuttle bay doors were already open to space, the emergency force field the only thing keeping the bay pressurized. Through the opening, they could see the pirate ship in the distance, a sleek predator among the asteroids. 10 minutes to complete atmospheric loss. They strapped themselves into the shuttle's pilot seats. Marcus took the controls while Zara monitored the sensors for any sign of the pirate ship detecting them. Once we leave this bay, they'll see us on their sensors, Zara warned. I'm counting on it. Marcus began the launch sequence. I need them to follow us. What? Why would you want that? Marcus's hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency. Because I have one more surprise for them. The shuttle launched from the bay just as the mining ship's hull began its final collapse. Behind them, the Prosperity's edge folded in on itself like a dying flower, taking with it the last evidence of the massacre that had occurred there. The pirate ship immediately changed course to intercept them, just as Marcus had predicted. Zara watched their sensors and felt her heart sink as she saw the speed difference between the two vessels. They'll catch us in 5 minutes, she reported. That's exactly what I want them to think. Marcus made a course adjustment that seemed to take them directly into an asteroid field. Hold on, this is going to get interesting. Zara's claws scraped against the metal floor as another explosion rocked the mining vessel. Emergency lights bathed everything in angry red, and the air recyclers wheezed like dying animals. She pressed her scaled back against the corridor wall, trying to stop the bleeding from her shoulder where shrapnel had torn through her environmental suit. The Kethvar mining ship Prosperity's edge was falling apart around her. What should have been a routine asteroid harvesting mission had turned into a nightmare when pirates attacked 3 hours ago. Most of her crew was dead now, floating in the cold vacuum or scattered across twisted metal throughout the ship. Hull breach in Section 7. The computer announced in its calm, emotionless voice. Life support failing in Sections 4 through 9. Estimated time until complete atmospheric loss, 47 minutes. Zara's four eyes darted around the corridor, looking for any escape route. The emergency pods were all gone or destroyed. The main engines were offline. Even if she could reach the bridge, there was no way to call for help through the communication array that the pirates had specifically targeted first. She was going to die out here, alone among the asteroids just like the rest of her people. A sound made her freeze. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Different from the light tread of her own species. The pirates had boarded and were searching for survivors to either kill or sell into slavery. Her people, the Kethfar, were valuable in certain black markets because of their natural ability to see in multiple light spectrums. Zara clutched the small cutting tool she'd grabbed from the mining bay. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all she had. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by voices speaking in a language she didn't recognize. Not the harsh guttural sounds of the Rex pirates who had attacked them, but something else entirely. Around the corner came a figure that made her heart skip several beats. It was tall, much taller than her own people, with pale skin and strange features, 2 eyes instead of 4, hair growing from its head in an unusual brown color, and wearing a damaged uniform she'd never seen before. The creature spotted her immediately and raised its hands, palms outward. "Easy there," it said in accented but understandable galactic standard. "I'm not here to hurt you." Zara kept her cutting tool raised, her breathing rapid and shallow. "What are you? Are you with the pirates?" "No, definitely not with the pirates." The alien took a careful step closer. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm human. My ship was attacked too about an hour after yours. I managed to get aboard this vessel in an escape pod before my ship exploded." Human? Zara had heard the name in passing. Whispered stories about a young species that had recently joined the galactic community. They were said to be unpredictable and dangerous, willing to fight against impossible odds. "Why should I trust you?" Marcus gestured to his torn uniform and the makeshift bandages wrapped around his left arm. "Because I'm in the same situation you are, stuck on a dying ship with nowhere to go." He paused, listening to the groaning of stressed metal around them. "How long do we have?" 40 minutes, maybe less." Zara lowered her cutting tool slightly but kept it ready. "The pirates destroyed everything. There's no way off this ship. There might be." Marcus pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display of the ship's schematics. "I've been mapping the damage. Most of the escape pods are gone, but there's a maintenance shuttle in Bay 12 that might still be intact." Zara's primary eyes widened, while her secondary ones focused on the holographic display. "Bay 12 is in Section 9. That section lost atmosphere 20 minutes ago. Not all of it." Marcus pointed to a small area highlighted in blue. "There's an emergency airlock here that's still holding pressure. If we can get there and put on environmental suits, we might be able to reach the shuttle." Another explosion shook the ship, and the lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance they could hear the sound of atmosphere rushing out through new holes in the hull. "Even if the shuttle works," Zara said, "the pirates are still out there. Their ship has military-grade weapons. A maintenance shuttle wouldn't last 10 seconds against them." Marcus's expression grew grim. "I know, but staying here definitely means death. At least in space we have a chance." Zara looked at this strange alien who had appeared out of nowhere with a desperate plan that probably wouldn't work. Everything about the situation screamed that she should distrust him, but something in his eyes reminded her of her own determination to survive. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You could try for the shuttle alone. One person would have a better chance than two, because that's not who I am." Marcus secured his equipment and checked his sidearm. "My species has a saying, no one gets left behind. It means we don't abandon people who need help, even if it puts us at greater risk." The ship shuddered again, and new alarms began blaring. Section 8 had just lost containment. 35 minutes, the computer announced. Zara made her decision. She secured her cutting tool and stood up straighter. "Lead the way, human. But if this is some kind of trick, I'll make sure you regret it." Marcus smiled, an expression that looked strange on his alien features. "Fair enough. Stay close and watch for debris. The corridors between here and Bay 12 are pretty torn up." They began moving through the damaged ship together, two survivors from different worlds, united by the simple desire to live through the next hour. Neither of them knew that this moment would change both their lives forever, or that the human walking beside her carried something that would prove more valuable than any asteroid mine in the galaxy. Zara's escape pod drifted through the void for what felt like forever. The small craft's life support systems hummed quietly around her, providing just enough air and heat to keep her alive while she waited in the darkness. Through the pod's single viewport, she could see the residual energy patterns from the quantum explosion, ghostly ribbons of light that danced where Marcus and the pirates had died. Her 4 eyes kept returning to the small data device he had given her. Such a tiny thing, no bigger than her thumb, yet it contained information that could change the fate of millions of refugees scattered across the galaxy. Marcus had died to protect it, and now the responsibility was hers alone. The pod's emergency beacon broadcast continuously on all standard frequencies, but space was vast and empty. Most ships avoided this region because of the unstable asteroid fields and frequent pirate activity. For all she knew, she could drift here for months before anyone found her. That was when the sensors detected something approaching. At first it was just a blur of motion on the edge of her detection range, moving faster than anything she had ever seen. Then it resolved into a ship, unlike any vessel in her experience. It was sleek and angular, with hull plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Most importantly, it was broadcasting human identification codes. The ship matched velocity with her pod and extended a docking tube. Through the tube came 2 figures in environmental suits, both clearly human based on their proportions and movement patterns. One was a woman with short black hair and the insignia of a ship's captain on her uniform. The other was a man with graying temples who wore the markings of a military medic. "Are you injured?" the medic asked as they brought her aboard their ship. His galactic standard was much better than Marcus's had been, with barely any accent. "Minor cuts and bruises," Zara replied. "Nothing serious." The captain introduced herself as Sarah Chen, and Zara's hearts skipped several beats when she heard the name. "Chen? Are you related to Marcus Chen?" Captain Chen's expression grew grim. "He was my brother. We received his final transmission 3 hours ago, along with his location data." She paused, studying Zara's face. "Were you with him when he died?" "Yes." Zara's voice was barely above a whisper. "He saved my life. He saved all of our lives." They brought her to the ship's medical bay where the doctor treated her injuries while Captain Chen questioned her about what had happened. Zara told them everything. The pirate attack on her mining vessel, finding Marcus in the wreckage, their escape through the dying ship, and his final sacrifice to destroy the pirates and protect the data. "He gave me this," Zara said, producing the small device. "He said it contained coordinates to a habitable world, and that only someone with Kethvar neural patterns could decode it." Captain Chen took the device with reverent care. Marcus was part of a deep space exploration mission. They were searching for new worlds that could support refugee populations. Her voice grew thick with emotion. "He always said he wanted to help people. I guess he found his way to do that." "The encryption is Kethvar specific?" the doctor asked, running a scanner over the device. "That's what Marcus said. He told me the pirates attacked our ship because they knew about the data but needed one of my people to access it." Captain Chen and the doctor exchanged glances. "That explains why the pirates have been targeting Kethvar vessels in this sector," the captain said. "We've lost 3 ships in the past month. There are more of my people out there?" "Not many. Most of the survivors have been relocated to refugee centers in the core systems." Captain Chen activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's current political situation. "The war between the Vrex Dominion and the Talar Republic has displaced millions of people. Habitable worlds are more valuable than gold right now." Zara studied the display, seeing the vast areas marked in red where warfare had made entire systems uninhabitable. Refugee fleets wandered between star systems, searching for worlds that could support their populations. Most were turned away because the established colonies couldn't support additional inhabitants. "How do we decode the data?" she asked. "That's the tricky part," the doctor said. Kethvar neural patterns are unique. Your brain processes information differently than most species, using quantum entanglement at the cellular level. We'll need to interface the device directly with your nervous system. "Is it dangerous?" "Unknown," Captain Chen admitted. "This kind of technology is still experimental. But without those coordinates..." Millions of people will continue to suffer. Zara took the device back and held it in her scaled palm. Marcus died to protect this information. I won't let his sacrifice be meaningless. The procedure took place in the ship's computer core, surrounded by processing units and quantum matrices that made Zara's head spin just looking at them. They connected the device to a neural interface, which in turn connected to her brain through a series of microfilaments that the doctor carefully inserted into her skull. I'm reading neural activity, the doctor reported. The device is responding to her thought patterns. Zara felt a strange tingling sensation, as if electricity was flowing through her thoughts. Information began flooding her mind, not in words or images, but in pure concept and understanding. She saw star charts, planetary surveys, atmospheric readings, and gravitational data for a world that existed on the edge of explored space. It's beautiful, she whispered, her 4 eyes wide with wonder. The world. It has 3 moons and vast oceans, continents covered in forests that stretch from horizon to horizon. The atmosphere is perfect for 17 different species, and there's enough land to support millions of colonists. Can you give us the coordinates? Captain Chen asked urgently. Already downloaded to your navigation system, Zara replied. But there's more. Much more. The data flow continued, revealing detailed surveys of the planet's resources, weather patterns, and ecosystems. Marcus's exploration team had spent months cataloging everything, creating a complete guide for future colonization efforts. They called it Haven, Zara said as the download completed. Marcus's team named it Haven because they knew it would be a refuge for those who had lost their homes. Captain Chen was already activating the ship's communication systems. I'm sending this data to the Refugee Coordination Council immediately. They'll need time to organize the colonization fleets. Wait, Zara said suddenly. There's something else in the data, something Marcus didn't mention. She accessed the final files and her expression grew troubled. The planet isn't uninhabited. There's a species there, primitive but intelligent. They've only recently developed agriculture and written language. That complicates things, the doctor said. Galactic law prohibits colonization of worlds with native intelligent life. Unless the natives consent to shared colonization, Captain Chen pointed out. But that would require first contact protocols, cultural exchange programs, and years of negotiation. Zara felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Marcus gave his life to protect this information. But he wouldn't have wanted us to hurt innocent people to use it. No, he wouldn't have, Captain Chen agreed. My brother always believed that doing the right thing was more important than doing the easy thing. Then we do it right, Zara said firmly. We organize a proper first contact mission. We approach the natives with respect and offer to share the world rather than take it from them. That could take years, the doctor warned. And in the meantime, millions of refugees will continue to suffer. Some things are worth waiting for, Zara replied, unconsciously echoing something Marcus had said during their escape. And some things are worth doing properly, even if it takes longer. Captain Chen smiled, and for a moment Zara could see the family resemblance between her and Marcus. I think my brother would have liked you, Zara. You understand what he died for. He died so that we could make the right choices, Zara said, carefully removing the neural interface. Now we have to prove that his faith in us was justified. 3 months later, Zara stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizon, watching as the jump coordinates aligned for their final approach to Haven. The ship was unlike anything she had experienced before, a joint human-Kethvar construction that represented the first formal cooperation between their species. Captain Chen had convinced the Refugee Coordination Council to fund a proper first contact mission, and Zara had been chosen as the cultural liaison. Her unique ability to decode the planetary data, combined with her experience with Marcus, made her the natural choice to bridge the gap between human determination and Kethvar caution. Jump complete, announced the navigation officer, a young human named Torres. We've arrived at the Haven system. Through the bridge's main viewport, Zara could see the planet exactly as Marcus's data had described it. 3 silver moons hung in the sky above a world of blue oceans and green continents. Even from orbit, She could see the vast forests and mountain ranges that would provide homes for millions of refugees. Beautiful, whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's xenobiologist. The atmospheric readings are perfect. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, stable weather patterns, and biodiversity levels that suggest a thriving ecosystem. What about the natives? Asked Commander James Liu, the mission's military advisor. Despite his title, he was there to ensure peaceful contact, rather than to prepare for conflict. Detecting settlements across all 3 major continents, reported the sensor's operator. Population estimates suggest approximately 12 million individuals, organized into what appear to be agricultural city-states. Zara studied the sensor readings, her 4 eyes analyzing the data patterns. They're more advanced than Marcus's preliminary surveys indicated. I'm seeing evidence of metalworking, complex architecture, and large-scale irrigation projects. That's good news, Dr. Vasquez said. More advanced societies are typically better equipped to handle first contact situations. Captain Chen activated the ship's recording systems. Beginning official log for first contact mission to Haven. Primary objective: establish peaceful communication with native intelligence and negotiate potential shared colonization agreements. Detecting artificial electromagnetic emissions from the surface, the communications officer reported. Primitive but organized. They have some form of electronic communication network. Can we decode their transmissions? Zara asked, working on it. The patterns are unlike anything in our databases, but there are mathematical structures that suggest intelligent origin. Zara moved to the communication station and began working alongside the human technicians. Her Kethvar neural patterns allowed her to process the alien signals in ways that pure computer analysis couldn't match. It's a language, she said after several minutes of intense concentration. Complex, multi-layered, with embedded mathematical concepts. They're not just communicating, they're sharing computational problems. What kind of problems? Dr. Vasquez leaned over her shoulder. Agricultural optimization, weather prediction, resource distribution. Zara's secondary eyes widened with surprise. They're cooperating on a planetary scale, sharing information between distant settlements to maximize efficiency. Commander Liu frowned. That level of cooperation could be either very good or very bad for our mission. Unified societies are either more likely to welcome strangers or more likely to see them as threats. Only one way to find out, Captain Chen said. Zara, can you prepare a basic communication protocol using their mathematical structures? Working with the ship's linguistic computers, Zara began constructing a simple message that used the natives' own mathematical patterns to convey peaceful intent. It was slow work, requiring her to translate not just words but entire conceptual frameworks between species that had evolved on different worlds. The message is ready, she announced after 2 hours of work. It's basic, but it should convey that we come in peace and wish to communicate. Transmitting now, the communications officer confirmed. They waited in tense silence for a response. First contact was always unpredictable, and despite all their preparations, there was no way to know how the natives would react to discovering they weren't alone in the universe. The response came faster than anyone expected. Incoming. Transmission, the communications officer announced. It's using our mathematical protocols but with increased complexity. Zara worked frantically to decode the message, her mind processing the alien concepts as quickly as possible. They're acknowledging our peaceful intent, she reported. And they're asking questions. Lots of questions. What kind of questions? Where we come from, how many of us there are, why we're here, what we want. Zara paused as new data flowed across her screens. And they're asking if we know about the sky fire that occurred in the outer reaches of their system 3 months ago. Captain Chen and Commander Liu exchanged glances. The quantum explosion, the commander said. They detected Marcus's sacrifice. They saw it as a sign, Zara continued translating. They've been expecting someone to come from the stars ever since. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward excitedly. They were already prepared for contact? That's unprecedented. There's more, Zara said, her voice growing amazed. They're inviting us to send a delegation to the surface. They want to meet us in person. That's unusually welcoming, Commander Liu said cautiously. Most first contact situations involve months of careful negotiation before anyone agrees to face-to-face meetings. Maybe they're different, Captain Chen suggested. Their cooperative society might make them more open to strangers. Zara continued working on the translation protocols, building a more sophisticated communication system, as the natives sent increasingly complex messages. What she discovered over the next few hours changed everything they thought they knew about the situation. "Captain," she said finally, her voice filled with wonder, "you need to hear this." The natives call themselves the Seludai, which translates roughly as caretakers of growing things. They've been managing their planet's ecosystem for over 1,000 years, maintaining a careful balance between their civilization and the natural world. "Impressive," Dr. Vasquez commented. "That level of environmental management suggests sophisticated scientific understanding." "But here's the remarkable part," Zara continued. "They've been expecting refugees from space for generations. It's part of their core philosophy that those who have lost their homes should be welcomed and given new places to grow." Captain Chen stared at the translation data. "They have a tradition of accepting refugees? More than that. They believe their world was given to them specifically to share with those in need. When they detected the quantum explosion, they interpreted it as a sign that the time had come to fulfill their purpose." Commander Liu looked skeptical. "That seems too convenient. Planets don't evolve cultures specifically designed to welcome alien refugees. Unless," Dr. Vasquez said slowly, "they evolved that culture because someone else was already here before us." Zara felt a chill run through her scales. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe Haven wasn't empty when the Seludai first evolved intelligence. Maybe they learned their welcoming philosophy from previous refugees who found shelter there." The implications of that possibility hung in the air like a challenge. If Dr. Vasquez was right, then Haven wasn't just a refuge for current refugees. It was part of a pattern that stretched back through galactic history, a world that had been welcoming the displaced and homeless for thousands of years. "There's only one way to find out," Captain Chen said finally. "We accept their invitation and send a delegation to the surface." "I'll go," Zara said immediately. "It's dangerous. We know almost nothing about their actual capabilities or intentions." "Marcus died to protect this information," Zara replied firmly. "I owe it to him to see this through personally." Captain Chen nodded slowly. "Then we go together. A small team. You, me, Dr. Vasquez, and Commander Liu. If this is going to work, it needs to be done right from the beginning." "And if it doesn't work?" Commander Liu asked. "Then we find another way," Zara said. Marcus believed that doing the right thing was more important than doing the easy thing. "We're going to prove he was right." 5 years after first contact, Zara stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching as another refugee transport descended toward Haven's surface. The station orbited between the planet and its largest moon, serving as a processing center for the constant stream of displaced population seeking new homes. Through the wide transparisteel windows, she could see the planet that had transformed from Marcus's desperate hope into a thriving sanctuary. The continents now sparkled with dozens of new settlements, each one carefully planned to integrate with both the existing Seludai communities and the planet's natural ecosystems. Transport renewals dawn requesting landing clearance, came the voice over the station's communication system, carrying 847 Talar refugees from the Kasari system. "Clearance granted," responded the traffic controller, a young Seludai who had learned to coordinate the complex dance of incoming ships. "Proceed to landing Bay 7. Cultural integration team will meet you on arrival." Zara smiled as she listened to the routine exchange. What had once seemed impossible was now simply another day's work. The integration protocols that had taken months to develop were now so refined that most refugee groups could be settled and beginning new lives within weeks of arrival. "Another successful day?" asked a familiar voice behind her. Zara turned to see Captain Chen approaching, though she now wore the insignia of Admiral Chen, commander of the Haven Integration Fleet. The past 5 years had been good to her, though Zara could still see the shadow of loss in her eyes when she spoke of her brother. "Very successful," Zara confirmed. "The Talar group will bring our total settled population to just over 2 million refugees from 43 different species." "And the Seludai?" Still amazed by how well this is working, Zara laughed. "Ellen Thara told me yesterday that their population has actually grown rather than been strained by the refugee influx. Apparently, having so many different perspectives and technologies available has led to advances in everything from agriculture to medicine." They walked together through the station's corridors, passing humans, Kethvar, Seludai, and dozens of other species working side by side. The station itself had become a symbol of galactic cooperation, built using technologies and techniques contributed by every group that had found shelter on Haven. "Any word from the Outer Scouts?" Admiral Chen asked. 3 new potentially habitable worlds identified this month, Zara reported. The exploration teams are following Marcus's protocols for each one, looking for native life before recommending them for colonization. And if they find native species? Same as always. First contact, cultural exchange, and only shared colonization if the natives consent. Zara's voice carried a pride that had grown over the years. "We've opened negotiations with 6 different species so far, and 3 of them have agreed to refugee settlement programs." They reached the station's central hub, where a massive, holographic display showed the current status of refugee movements throughout the galaxy. Green indicators marked successful settlements, yellow showed planets under negotiation, and red indicated areas where conflicts prevented safe refugee transport. "The war zone is shrinking," Admiral Chen observed, studying the display. Slowly but surely, the Vrex Dominion and Talar Republic have both started negotiating rather than fighting. Turns out that when refugees have somewhere safe to go, there's less pressure on disputed territories. "Marcus would have been proud," Admiral Chen said quietly. "He would have been amazed," Zara corrected. "I don't think even he imagined that one planet could become the foundation for an entire galactic refugee resettlement program." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display shifted to show Elenthara's familiar face, her pale green skin marked now with new patterns that indicated her elevation to elder status among the Seludai. "Greetings, friends," she said in her harmonious voice. "I bring news from the growing council." "Good news, I hope?" Admiral Chen asked. "The best possible news. We have received approval from the Galactic Senate to establish the Haven Accords, a formal treaty framework for refugee resettlement throughout the galaxy." Zara felt her heart skip several beats. They had been working toward this moment for 3 years, negotiating with hundreds of different governments and organizations to create a universal standard for refugee protection and resettlement. "All major galactic powers have agreed?" she asked. "All of them. Even the Vrex Dominion and Talar Republic have signed on, recognizing that properly managed refugee resettlement reduces conflicts rather than creating them." Elenthara's large black eyes seemed to shine with joy. "The accords will be formally signed next month in a ceremony here on Haven." "That's incredible," Admiral Chen breathed. "A galactic treaty for refugee protection. It's exactly what we've been hoping for." "There's more," Elenthara continued. "The Senate has agreed to establish a permanent refugee resettlement council with headquarters here on Haven. The council will coordinate refugee movements, oversee first contact protocols, and ensure that all resettlement efforts follow the principles we've developed." Zara leaned against the holographic display console, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished. What had started with Marcus's desperate sacrifice had grown into a galactic movement that would protect refugees for generations to come. "Who will lead the new council?" Admiral Chen asked. "The growing council has nominated you, Zara," Elenthara said with a smile. "You understand both the technical aspects of refugee resettlement and the deeper principles that make it successful. Will you accept?" Zara looked out through the viewport at Haven's surface, where millions of former refugees were building new lives in harmony with their hosts and the planet's natural systems. She thought about Marcus, whose sacrifice had made all of this possible, and about the promise she had made to use his gift to help people. "I accept," she said finally. "But I have one condition." "What condition?" "We establish a memorial to Marcus Chen at the council headquarters. Not just a statue or a plaque, but a living memorial. A garden where people can come to remember that sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest sacrifices." "Already planned," Elenthara replied warmly. "The memorial garden will be planted with earth roses and Kethvar singing flowers, along with plants from every world that has contributed to our success." "Earth roses," Admiral Chen repeated softly. Marcus loved those. He used to say they proved that beautiful things could grow even in difficult conditions. Then it's perfect, Zara said. As the transmission ended and they returned to their daily work, Zara found herself thinking about the future. The Haven Accords would create a framework for protecting refugees throughout the galaxy. But more than that, they would establish principles of cooperation and mutual aid that could transform galactic civilization. Marcus had died believing that sometimes one person had to sacrifice for the greater good, but what they had built on Haven proved something even more powerful, that when people worked together, when they chose cooperation over conflict and inclusion over exclusion, they could create something greater than any individual sacrifice. The small data device he had given her still sat in her quarters, now empty of its original information but treasured as a reminder of where their journey had begun. Sometimes late at night, when she was working on particularly difficult refugee cases, she would hold it and remember Marcus's words about doing the right thing, even when it was harder than doing the easy thing. The galaxy was still full of dangers and conflicts, but it was also full of hope. And that hope had begun with a human sacrifice that saved not just one Kethvar life, but millions of lives across the stars. As another refugee transport appeared, in the distance, Zara smiled and prepared to welcome new arrivals to their sanctuary among the stars. Marcus's future was being carried forward by everyone who found safety and hope on Haven, and that future grew brighter with each passing day. The shuttle descended through Haven's atmosphere like a falling star, its heat shields glowing as they cut through the dense air. Zara pressed her face to the viewport, watching as the planet's surface resolved into breathtaking detail. Vast forests stretched to the horizon, broken by rivers that gleamed like silver threads and cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape itself. The architecture is remarkable, Dr. Vasquez observed, studying the sensor readings. Their buildings seem to be integrated with living trees and natural rock formations. It's like they've learned to work with the planet rather than against it. Population density is much lower than typical for their technology level, Commander Liu noted. They could support many more people with their current infrastructure. Maybe that's intentional, Captain Chen suggested. If they've been expecting refugees, they might have deliberately kept population levels low to make room. The landing site was a vast meadow outside the largest city on the primary continent. As their shuttle touched down, Zara could see hundreds of Seludai gathering at a respectful distance. They were tall and slender, with pale green skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Most striking were their eyes, which were large and completely black, giving them an appearance of depth and wisdom. "Remember," Captain Chen said as they prepared to disembark, "we're not just representing our own species here. We're representing the hopes of millions of refugees throughout the galaxy." "No pressure at all," Commander Liu muttered, checking his translation device one more time. Zara led the way out of the shuttle, her four eyes taking in every detail of their surroundings. The air smelled of growing things and carried the sound of wind through leaves. It was exactly the kind of world that Marcus had dreamed of finding, a place where life could flourish in peace and harmony. A group of Seludai approached them, moving with a grace that reminded Zara of water flowing over stones. The leader was clearly ancient, her green skin marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change in the light. She wore robes that appeared to be woven from living vines, and her presence radiated a calm authority that was immediately reassuring. "Welcome, travelers from the far stars," she said in perfect galactic standard, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Zara's bones. "I am Elenthara, speaker for the Growing Council. We have been waiting for you." Captain Chen stepped forward and offered the traditional human greeting gesture. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the vessel New Horizon. We come in peace, seeking to understand and to find common ground between our peoples. Peace is the foundation of all growth," Elenthara replied. "Your arrival was foretold by the great fire in the sky. Our ancestors prepared us for this moment." Dr. Vasquez couldn't contain her scientific curiosity. "Your ancestors knew that refugees would come from space." "Not knew, hoped." Elenthara gestured toward the city behind her where graceful spires rose among ancient trees. "Our world has always been a place of sanctuary. Throughout our history, those who had lost their homes have found welcome here. We learned long ago that diversity brings strength." "How long ago?" Zara asked, her translator working to convey the nuances of her question. "Come, let us show you." Elenthara began walking toward the city, and the other Seludai fell into step around them. Understanding requires more than words. The city was unlike anything in galactic civilization. Buildings grew from living trees, their walls formed by guided growth rather than construction. Streets followed natural contours, creating a harmonious flow that felt organic and planned at the same time. Most remarkably, Zara could see clear evidence of multiple architectural traditions woven together into a unified whole. There, Elenthera pointed to a section of the city where the buildings had a distinctly different style. The Velnari Quarter, built by refugees who arrived 800 years ago when their star died. And there, the Shalketh section where survivors of a plague found new homes 6 centuries past. Commander Liu studied the architectural evidence with growing amazement. "You've been accepting refugee populations for centuries?" "Millennia," Elenthera corrected gently. "Our oldest stories speak of the first refugees, who arrived when our people were still learning to tend the great forests. They taught us much about the wider galaxy and the importance of providing sanctuary to those in need. They reached the heart of the city, where a magnificent building rose from the largest tree Zara had ever seen. Its trunk was easily a kilometer in diameter, and its canopy stretched so high that she couldn't see the top through the leaves. "The Hall of Memories," Elenthera explained. "Here we preserve the stories of all who have found refuge on our world. Inside the tree, bioluminescent panels covered the walls, each one containing holographic records of different refugee groups and their integration into Seludai society." Zara walked from panel to panel, her 4 eyes wide with wonder as she saw the visual history of galactic displacement stretching back thousands of years. "This is incredible," Dr. Vasquez breathed. "You've documented every refugee group that's ever come here." "Knowledge preserved is wisdom gained," Elenthera said. "Each group brought new perspectives, new skills, new ways of understanding the galaxy. We are stronger because of their contributions. But how do you manage the integration?" Captain Chen asked. "Different species have different needs, different social structures." "The same way a forest manages different types of trees," Elenthera replied. "Each finds its proper place in the ecosystem, contributing to the whole while maintaining its unique nature." Zara found herself drawn to one particular panel that showed a species she didn't recognize. They were tall and angular, with metallic skin and eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. "The Calveth," Elenthera said, noticing her interest. "They arrived 12 centuries ago, fleeing a war that consumed their entire sector. They brought with them knowledge of quantum physics that helped us understand the deeper structures of reality. What happened to them? They thrived. Their descendants live among us still, though they have changed much over the generations. Adaptation is the key to survival." Commander Liu was studying a different panel that showed what appeared to be a massive space battle. "This looks recent." 3 months ago, Elenthera confirmed. "The great fire that announced your coming. We felt the quantum disruption across our entire system, and knew that something momentous had occurred." Zara's scales rippled with emotion as she realized they were looking at artistic representations of Marcus's final battle. The Seludai had somehow detected the quantum explosion and interpreted it correctly as a sign that refugees were coming. "The one who created that fire," Zara said carefully, "was a friend of mine. He sacrificed his life to protect the information that led us here." Elenthera's large black eyes seemed to look directly into Zara's soul. "Then his sacrifice was not in vain. The quantum resonance he created will echo through space-time for millennia, a beacon for all who seek sanctuary among the stars." "You understand quantum physics?" Dr. Vasquez asked with scientific excitement. "We understand that all things are connected," Elenthera replied. "The Calveth taught us to see the deeper patterns that bind the galaxy together. Your friend's sacrifice created ripples that will guide others to safety long after we are gone." Captain Chen stepped forward, her expression serious. "Speaker Elenthera, we come not just as visitors but as representatives of millions of refugees displaced by the current war. We seek permission to establish colonies on your world, to share the resources and knowledge we can provide. Permission is not needed for those who seek shelter," Elenthera said simply. "Welcome is freely given to all who come in peace. But let us speak of how this can be done in harmony with our existing communities." "You're saying yes?" Commander Liu asked in amazement. "Just like that? The galaxy is vast and full of wonders, but it is also full of darkness and displacement," Elenthera replied. This world exists to provide light for those lost in that darkness. Your refugees will find homes here just as countless others have before them. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized that Marcus's dream was becoming reality. The coordinates he had died to protect would indeed save millions of lives, and they would do so without violence or displacement of existing populations. There is much to discuss, Elenthara continued. Resources to allocate, communities to plan, cultural exchange programs to establish. But the fundamental question has been answered. Haven welcomes all who seek to grow in peace. As they left the Hall of Memories, Zara looked up at the 3 moons hanging in the afternoon sky and whispered a quiet thank you to Marcus. Somehow she was certain he could hear her.